think that
Okay, you're all set.
So, are you that far away?
Yeah, it's good.
So, what'd you do? You use the Velcro on that to hold the camera?
I'm just using the weight to hold the camera. All right. It's
Lights,
recording.
camera, action, roll 'em.
Okay. One day there was a band contest over at Wachula, and I wanted to take the kids, and I went in to the kids' maze to ask Dawn if I could take the kids, and before I even started talking, she says, "Take my kids, please," because she was having a rough day at the kids' maze. And so we went over there and we watched the band concert at Wachula, and that was really fun. And another time we were at the hammock and we were parked in that long oval thing, and Joseph got his bicycle stuck in the sand. Excuse me. And I told Jonathan to watch Becca while I helped get Joseph out. And when I had gotten him out, I looked up, and here at the far end of that parking thing was Jonathan riding his bike, and Becca following right behind him on hers. And I popped him on the bottom, and I said, "I told you to watch Becca, not lead her away." So anyhow, I made him get in the van and stay there until we were all ready to go. And another time, I don't think it was that same time, but we were still at the hammock, and Jonathan got in it seems like it was a van, because he was like standing up and jumping around, and he was flinging his arms all around, and I says, "Jonathan, get a grip. If you're gonna be a Florida boy, you got to get used to a few bugs." So, well, you can cut right now because I can't think for a minute.
Well, that's okay. Philip can jump in with stories from when you guys were kids. It's easier for me to cut it later.
Well, on a warmer note, this time of year, we used to go to Grandpa White's over in Englewood on Godfrey Creek, and I remember we used to fish for these sheep's head fish that were, well, I guess you call them a panfish. They're kind of flat
Yeah.
on the horizontal, and they had white and black stripes. And I think we used to catch fiddler crabs in the grass for bait.
Well, that's what I really remember. We had a bucket and two pieces of wood forming a V into the bucket and something to call up. And we would just herd the crabs up that V-shaped spout, and they'd go into the bucket. So we caught them pretty easy.
The V-shape sounds big. I think maybe one time Daddy had a film of that, but I think it got lost.
Well, yeah, I can remember seeing a movie of it.
Yeah, so we're right on that then.
Yeah.
We both remember the same thing.
Another thing, when I was a kid at the Sebring house, and we had all sorts of little forts and different kind of cavills all out through the woods. I remember one of them, we named it Oak House.
That's where the Three Gents Grill is now, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you haven't been there since they put that in.
Since what's there?
The Three Gents Grill, but it's across the street from what is now the Free Will Baptist Church,
Uh-huh.
and across what is now Parkway. I remember that. I tell everybody that there was a bunch of these skinny live oaks that came up in a kind of like a circle,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
there was a little bit of a clearing inside,
Yeah.
and we used to sit in there and play house or something.
Right. Yeah, we had about 10 or 12 different little things like that. And we would always go out through the woods, and Mother was worried about snakes, and she actually bought a snake bite kit and showed us how to use it. And then when we got the dog, Pal, he would go out with us, and then she didn't worry about snakes so much because he would scout them out. So, oh, and Pal went with us on our vacations, and he would drool all over the shoulders.
And Mom put a raincoat over the back
Yeah.
seat, right?
Yeah. And then is when they were just starting to come out with air conditioners that you could add to your car. They didn't come with them standard. And Mother says, before the next trip we take with this dog, we're gonna get an air conditioner. So we always told people we got an air conditioner in the car for the dog. Because he was getting the shoulders wet of all the people in the front.
I think that was a 56 Pontiac.
Well, I might have been earlier than that. So, but another time, I think, when we went out west, we took Grandpa White from Florida, and in Missouri, we picked up Grandpa Comstock and Aunt Lola, and so we had 5 grown-ups and 3 kids in a car for 2 weeks. And one thing I remember, Aunt Lola wouldn't eat an egg for a couple of weeks because the geysers smelled like rotten eggs.
I
Yeah.
didn't eat eggs for a year after that.
Well, I don't remember how long she was, but it was a while. And when we were going through Yellowstone, there were lots of bears that we would see, and all the cars would stop, and we called it a bear jam. And so when we got to the other side of the park, we were counting up all the bears we had seen. And we said, came to 35. And Grandpa Comstock said 36. But I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to stop again. In another trip, when Bobby and Sean were younger, we took a trip out west, and I was in a phase of shooting barns, and I don't remember whether if you saw one you didn't tell me or what, but anyhow, I was shooting a bunch of pictures of barns on the way out west.
Was that the one where we'd see barns with "See Rock City" painted on them?
Yeah, you see that quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah. We did actually see you actually. Oh,
Oh, back to counting the bears for a minute. Everybody in our family likes to count things.
yeah.
Lisa counts the stars around the mountain and the motion picture lead up.
Well,
And Bob, her husband, asked her one time how many stars there were, and she says 22. He says, I know you would know that because you count everything.
that was Lisa, right?
Lisa, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it even. I mean, I still count. If there's more than 3, I'll probably count them.
Exactly.
But I never counted something like those moving stars.
Yeah.
But anyhow, one time we were watching home movies, and it was Bobby's girls in a pool, and they had a big statue of a hippo with his mouth open. And so in the movie it shows Stephanie touching each one of the teeth. And so when we were watching the movie, she says, you know what I was doing? I was counting the teeth. So I guess it still runs down.
Yeah. What?
That's one thing in this family that you can count on.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you count things?
Oh yeah.
You do?
Yep.
Mom told me she counted the oncoming cars when she was driving.
Well, I used to think I was the only one that did it. But then when I heard Stephanie do it, I knew it went.
It's a common thing with crazy people, but I won't get any more into that subject.
Yeah. So,
Mom, can you pull your hat up just a little bit?
yeah, I'll keep trying to. You want me to take it off?
Would it be too cold?
I don't think it'll be. We'll
Oh,
wait
you
and
look more
see.
like Mama now with the white hair.
Is it white?
Yeah, pretty much.
My goodness, well, I'm glad. I thought I was turning gray, and I thought, being a blonde, I should have turned white, but I've never known.
Well, what do you think there?
No, it's white.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad. So, that makes me think of. I guess you're not filming right now,
I am.
huh?
I am.
Okay.
I can cut it out.
So, anyhow,
Yeah.
that makes me think of dumb blonde jokes. Because once when Bobby's girls were little, I was telling them a dumb blonde joke. And Bobby sort of chided me for doing it. He says, what do you think they are? And I says, oh, what do you think I am? I said, I think dumb blonde jokes are funny. So, but now I can't even remember any of them. But,
I think they kind of went out of style.
yeah,
Probably a lot of those. You don't hear them that much anymore.
yeah.
Well,
I got one for you.
What?
There's a blonde in the forest, and she hears help, help, and she runs through the forest, and she comes up to a river, and across the river, there's a blonde. She's yelling help, and the blonde says to the other blonde, says, "What's wrong?" She goes, "I'm stuck over here, and I can't get to the other side." And the other blonde says, "You're already on the other side."
Well, I hadn't heard that one before.
So
yeah, there's
a guy goes into a library, and he whispers. He goes, "Where are the books on paranoia?" And the librarian says, "What?" And he goes, "Where are the books on paranoia?" And she leans over the counter and whispers in his ear, "They're right behind you."
well, I guess I sort of get that one.
He's paranoid, and the books are right behind him.
Yeah.
Paranoid people think everybody's right behind
Looking
them.
over their shoulder all the time. What the old saying is also, even paranoiacs have enemies.
Yep.
Well, that was what Safari was. The poor thing thought everything was out to get her, and she was pretty close to being right. Because one time when you guys brought Samson up here, and I don't think Sunshine had actually chased her by herself, but with Samson here, the two of them went running after Safari one time. And, oh, that's why, you know, when Zuko was a puppy and they had to take him through our room to get him outside, and Safari thought, you know, this dog was going to be after her, so she struck the first blow and hit the poor puppy on the nose. And after that, it was a long time before Zuko would go through our room. And so I think I told Sean, says, you need to get that dog around a friendly cat, because it's not going to be good to have a 110-pound dog that doesn't like cats. So,
Well, on the animal side, I remember, I guess it had been the same trip. We went to Yellowstone in '48 and had everybody in the car. When we got back to Nevada, where Grandpa Comstock was, the family, that somebody came by, young couples I recall, and they had a film, Hollywood-made film, Bill and Coo, about it was a predecessor to the Walt Disney True Life Adventure. They had actual film of actual pigeons, and they had this one boy pigeon named Bill, and the other pigeon named Coo, and had a little story built up about them. And did find that story on the internet here a couple years back. And they hung up, as I recall, a white bed sheet for screen, and they sold tickets, and they had a couple or three rows of these wooden slat folding chairs, and the audience sat in these chairs and watched this little Bill and Coo 20-minute movie for a dime or something.
oh, well, Sean, have I already told the one about when we were in Colorado and we were spending the night on an overlook, and Daddy and I saw so many meteors?
You haven't.
You don't remember that one? Okay. Well,
That was the one that got really cold.
yeah. My mother used to read to us My Fimsucka and Thunderhead and Greengrass, Wyoming, and a completely different one called the Kontiki, about people on a raft going across,
The Pacific.
I think it was the Pacific. So anyhow, we were in Wyoming, and I think we even saw the movie of Greengrass, Wyoming out there. And then we were I guess we got out of the movie too late, and we were spending the night on an overlook, and Mother and Philip slept in the car, and Daddy and I were on cots outside, and we started seeing so many meteors, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I think it was because we were there during the August meteor shower. And so we had just thought we were, because we were up high and stuff like that, and it was clear. But during the night, it got so cold, we slept on the ground and turned the cots on the side as a windbreaker. And another thing about the August meteor shower, John Denver's song, I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. I saw him doing an interview once, and he said we were up in the Rockies camping in mid-August. And that's, so he was talking about the August meteor shower.
So how old were you then when you slept outside?
Well, Shirley wasn't
Shirley
with us.
wasn't here, so it
She was
must have
married.
been the time I was a senior, and that's the time Mother and Daddy were taking me back to the Tetons, because I had first gone there when I was just out of 5th grade, and I fell in love with the Tetons, and I was always talking about them. And one day, when I was a senior, Mother came in and says, if you expect to get to the Tetons, you got to get up and get around here. And in 3 days, we were gone. And she and Daddy had been planning it, but they hadn't told me yet, just in case anything came up and we couldn't go. So, anyhow, I'd been to see the Tetons twice before we went with you guys, and we camped there and went across the lake and hiked in mountains and stuff like that. So, and it was maybe a couple years ago that Bobby and Ann took a hiking trip all through the Tetons. So that was good. So, okay, it'll blank right this minute, so I'll pause.
Yeah, I was thinking of something too. I slipped my mind. Oh yeah, back on the reading, talking about books. One thing we did, Mom and her dad before were very big on education, and part of that is just reading, period. And you can check me on the titles. We did it when Mom and Dad and I lived out at 815, the rental house, while we were building a new house, and you were off in school in Gainesville. And one time we read Tom Sawyer, and what Mom had us do, one person in the family would read a couple of 3 pages, and they'd pass it around the circle, and then we'd read a book. We read the book Tom Sawyer.
Between you and Mother and Daddy?
Yeah, we kept that going even after you and Shirley were off and gone. But we started it when Shirley was still home, before she got married, and I think the first book we read was Cheaper by the Dozen?
Oh yeah, I remember that one. That was neat.
And then one time, I don't know if you all were there, you and Shirley, but we read that Tom Sawyer, and I guess Huckleberry Finn. Was that 2 books?
Yeah.
And maybe Swiss Family Robinson.
Yeah.
You were there when we read that one then.
Yeah.
So that was, I think a lot of families did that back in those days,
Yeah.
because I've heard of it, but it doesn't seem to be so prevalent nowadays.
Well, I really enjoyed reading all those books.
Oh yeah, one mother on the nature side, Daddy used to go over to the drugstore, I guess Rexall or Gilbert's or whatever, on the circle. He'd buy little paperback books on science and things. And one time we got a paperback book, and I guess we read that as a family. And it was Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, which kicked off the environmental movement in the 50s.
Yeah. Well,
I think we read
That's-
that as a family.
Sean, you like to read off of the internet, but I don't want you to throw away all these books without checking them, because I got a lot of very good books here.
Mm-hmm.
And Wayne's wife, Sue, she read to her kids while they were still in the womb. She started reading to them. So I think that's good.
Well, it certainly instills an interest in reading and education in
Yeah.
the children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helps anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I really remember Mother reading to us, and that was so good.
Oh, remember how we used to get ready to go to this? Remember, Mom told that story about she nearly died of TB in 1943, and
You
Daddy nearly died after appendix operation in 1940.
Oh, yeah.
I got a letter somewhere at home on that. And then in 1943, she got real sick with tuberculosis,
Yeah.
and they couldn't treat that very well then. And she always told this story that she always told Daddy, we're going to take a vacation to take our kids with us, so in case either one of us passes for some reason,
Yeah.
they can say, oh, what wonderful trips we had with Mama and Daddy.
I remember that exactly. Says, we're going to get out of here every year on vacation with these kids, so when we're gone, they can say, didn't we have fun with Mother and Daddy? And that's how they instilled in us the love of travel. And so my kids like to travel. I think Mother one time says she and I must have been half gypsy because we liked to travel so much. And then when I married Richard, he really liked to travel. And I said, he must be all gypsy. but I've heard on some of these audiobooks, like says save on things that are not so important, but spend extravagantly on things you love. And that's what Bobby and Ann are doing. They are going on trips that they really enjoy, but he'll skimp on paper towels, because I was there cleaning off one of my cupboards one time with a wifey, and he says, use a paper towel, they cost less. And he's always doing things to save, but they spend extravagantly on their trips, and they really enjoy them. So I hope Sean and Don will do the same thing and do what you really enjoy. I heard one guy say that once about books. He says, if a book even mildly interests you, go ahead and buy it, because you can't beat education.
And they're good to have around in case another hurricane shuts down your power for 3 weeks, like I had one time in the 2004 season.
Wow.
Oh, I had that. You were thinking something. Oh, when we went on vacation, remember what happened 2 or 3 days before we went on vacation?
We baked cookies.
We what?
We baked cookies.
Oh yeah, that too. But the other thing was, Mom would have us clean up the house, and it took us 2 days to do it, because she said, what happens if you have a car accident, we're all killed, and they come in to have a wake, and they see how messy my house is.
Yeah.
And Mom was she was into everything. Well, she got stenography secretarial training in high school in Fort Scott, Kansas, and she did all the books for the business. She covered the front selling the records and the guitars and the TVs and the radios. She was the president of the Business and Professional Women's Club one year and active in it for maybe like 10. She ran the Red Cross at one point, I think. I've got her cap. And she also pretty much ran the Ground Observer Corps in the Cold War.
The Ground Observer Corps.
And had 3 kids. And so the housekeeping had to kind of slide.
Yeah.
And she wrote copious amounts of letters.
Oh, yes. She was always.
Which is a lot of our family history is recorded and typed.
I can remember going up in the tower out at the ball field watching for airplanes in the Ground Observatory.
I've got your certificate from the government on that somewhere at the house.
Well, somewhere during all that, I thought of something else, and now I forgot.
Oh, also, other than that.
Oh, I know. Wayne Harris. Sean, did you know that Wayne Harris was Christy Reed's dad? And they lived just around the corner across that vacant lot out by us. We're all growing up. And unfortunately, I didn't find that out until after Christy died. And I says, wow, I could have told those boys some stories about their grandpa, because I don't think I've told these before. There was one time when...
Oh, yeah, the lake story, Lake Jackson.
Yeah, well, when Wayne and his older sister Shirley and me and my sister Shirley, and everybody was named after Shirley Temple then.
And the two Shirleys, Shirley Harris and Shirley White, were the same age, right? Same class.
Pretty close, I think. So, anyhow, we were over swimming at the lake, and we older ones got the idea of swimming across to Carvacious Point.
Which is about a mile.
Yeah, and when that, is it that far?
Well, wait a minute. I think it's Edgewater, the one going towards
now
town.
They've changed the name. It's Edgewater now.
Yeah, okay.
It was Carvacious back then. Anyhow, we had 4 kids and 3 inner tubes. So.
And I and Linda Harris were left standing on the shore.
Yeah. So we took turns of one person swimming all the time. And Philip and their younger sister Linda watched us until they couldn't see us anymore. So then they went home.
And I ratted you out.
Yeah, and they called Mother. And when we could see the shoreline of the point, there was Mother standing there. And I don't know, I think
She picked up a board or something, I think.
Yeah, I think Shirley suggested turning around and going back.
I forgot that part.
Yeah, so anyhow, so we got out and got her spanking, and I think we couldn't go swimming for maybe 2 weeks, which was bad in the summertime. So, have you heard that one, Sean?
No, I hadn't.
You hadn't?
No.
Oh my goodness. So, and another time, we had a chinaberry tree just behind our house, and we would climb up in what we called them monkey rakes.
Yeah, there was first, second, and third.
Yeah, and I think we even had a 4th, but Shirley was the only one that made it to the 4th. But one time, Wayne and I climbed up in that tree and jumped off onto the carport roof. And Mother spanked both of us. She said that was the only time she spanked a neighbor person's kids, because I think they had just had the roof repaired on the carport for quite a bit of money. And she said it felt like spanking Wayne and Shirley when we swam across to the point, but she didn't. So, oh, and all these years later, we hadn't seen him, and when I went to Christy's funeral, there was a whole lot of people there, and I was in line quite a ways back. And Wayne says, "Sheila!" So he recognized me after all those years. Oh, and another thing, when Mother was in, I think it was in the Ground Reserve Corps, he was a policeman, and he had gotten some pictures. And anyhow, Mother was driving home, and this police car with this red lights started flashing behind her. And so when he got her stopped, he says, "Miss White, I got some pictures from the Ground Reserve Corps I thought you'd like to see." And she says, "My goodness, man, don't do that to me again." She was worried as to why she was getting pulled over. So,
Oh, you remember? You
excuse
probably
me.
don't remember, but I remember when you and Daddy would teach me to ride our little bicycle, and you were holding on to the back fender or something. "We got you, we got you, we got you," and you pedal, and you keep going. And then I pedaled about 20 or 30 times and turned around, and there's you and Daddy about 50 feet behind. You let go and didn't tell me.
Yeah.
And I guess I fell over at that point.
Well, I can't remember others that I taught, but I think I was teaching either Shirley or Stephanie at their Main Street house. Oh, well, that reminds me of other stories about snow, because one winter you guys came to Virginia, and it's snowed one evening, and we all went out and bought the Florida kids some winter clothes, and you showed the car headlights on the hill, and they went sledding down the hill by car lights. And I thought, well, why in the world don't you just wait until in the morning? But I guess Bobby was used to what it did, because in the morning the snow was melted. And I remember, I'm not sure if it was Savannah at that point. Anyhow, she was wearing a little, not, well, little to hers, but it came to her ankles thing. Anyhow, she was wearing a yellow snowsuit, and it says, "She looks like a little yellow snowman." And Joseph, what he did in the snow, he had boots, and he went stomp, 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 jump, jump, jump in the snow. And he had fun doing that. And we went sledding. Well, that was in their Nickel Lane house, but in the Main Street house, they went sledding down the back hill. Well, Sean,
Mm-hmm.
where was it that you told something about all the kids were together in the snow and you guys built some kind of ramp or something and you decide you said your kids first, you know, what they were trying to do.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be a ramp.
Yeah.
It was a road that had been snowed on, and it had a pretty steep pitch to it. And Bobby and I were afraid that the kids would go too far down the road past us. So we built up like an embankment. And the idea was they would slide down, they would hit the embankment and stop. And his daughters were older than my kids, and he was pretty tough with them, things he let them do. So I said, your kids first. And I don't remember if it was Shelia or Stephanie, but one of them come flying down, and the embankment turned out to be more of a ramp. And she was launched through the air.
Oh,
And then it kept going. We had to go down and catch her.
I guess. Yeah. Well, I remember one time I was shooting movies of everybody else having a snowball fight, and I says, "Don't hit the camera," and then right then it hit the camera. So, yep, there are some fun trips. Oh, remember our winter trip when your dad got a vacation time and he had to either take it in January or lose it. So we just went north until we hit snow. And I remember you guys sledded down a golf course hill.
Do you remember what we used?
Huh?
Do you remember what we used?
What?
What did we use the sled on?
Oh. It was like some kind of lid or something.
No, they were rafts.
A raft?
We had those old inflatable rafts.
Oh. Yeah.
And I remember Dad taking the pacer out into the parking lot of a Kmart or something and going and hitting the brakes and turning the wheel, and we went spinning through the parking lot on the ice.
Well, I think it was probably for graduation. I made several poster boards of pictures, and I remember labeling vacations were fun, especially the winter one, because I think that was the first time you guys had seen snow. So,
One thing I remember, I was talking to Gloria Dixon here about a month ago, and she came down to see how it was after the hurricane and talk about you and whatever. And somehow we got on, I got some pictures where she and Mom walked around Lake Jackson with some kind of a charity benefit. And Gloria, if I recall, was 15, so Mom would have been, that would have been 69, 74. Mom would have been 65, I guess. And they walked all the way around Lake Jackson.
yeah.
Some kind of benefit walk.
I remember that because she was. I didn't remember how old she was, but I remember she walked on I think it was for March of Dimes or something, and she walked all the way around.
This is like 10 or 12 miles.
Yeah.
But that reminds me of something I thought of a while ago. Maybe you'll remember this, Sean. The time that your grandma and grandpa took all of you kids, let's see, all the 3 Varden kids and Bobby, and she got matching outfits. We got pictures, white like dungaree material, and
Yeah.
then I think navy blue tops.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody saying, "I saved my cousin," but I think you were the cousin that got saved. You fell in the creek, in the mountain.
Well,
They were up in the Smokies.
Sean didn't go on that trip because
Well, there's a picture of
he
him.
was still in diapers, because we took a picture of all of them out front of the house, and I think Mother was holding Sean.
Yeah. Oh,
But
okay. Yeah.
Bobby was only
That's. I've got that wrong because
maybe
that,
about 4.
it's that picture that's in my mind.
Well, Sean, Bobby fell in the river,
Yeah, and Billy pulled him out or
and
something.
somebody pulled him out. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, that was a real nice trip that they took him on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Bobby got lost someplace, and Gloria said she just got down low to the ground and looked for white pants.
Between the end of the skirts and everything.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
another time, we were at the state fair, and Sean was fascinated by the alligators, and I had been carrying you and stuff, and then there was people playing music, so I had set you down while we were standing there to listen, and when I looked back, you weren't there, and I panicked for a while, and I'm not sure exactly how he found you. We're just backtracking, and you said I was going back to see the other acres. So you just wanted, and that's sort of like Jonathan did it when we were doing this scenic railroad from Bryson City. That was the one that they used for the fugitive, and you can see the train wreck. But anyhow, we were at the depot, and Sean and Don were up at the concession stand or something, and once Richard says, "Where's Jonathan?" And I says, "What do you mean, where's Jonathan?" And I panicked again and didn't look up, and he'd gone up to be with Sean and Don, and so, but it's a real panic to all of a sudden realize your kid's not where you thought he was. So,
Are you getting cold?
well, I'm not any colder than I was, so I just have to think of stories as they come to me.
Well, I remember one thing that happened to me that a couple of things that you wouldn't remember. Because when it happens to you, you remember it. But Mom and Dad were busy. By that time, she would have been probably president of the BPW, because I must have been about 8 or 9. And they had those 3 houses they bought after the war
Yeah.
for rental houses, and they she sold all of them. She was taking care of that, and she was running the front part of the business and doing all secretarial work, and had us 3 kids, and they worked, I don't know how many hours a week, but
Yeah.
one night I was about 8 or so, and Mama took you and Shirley and went home, and she was going to start supper, and Daddy left me. She left me with Daddy while Daddy was working on radios and things at work, and then I was playing in the dirt behind the shop. This is the one at the corner of South Ridgewood and the alley, Wall Street. And it got dark. It must not have been winter time, because I don't remember being cold. And it finally got dark, and I thought, well, it must be the best time to go home with Daddy now. So I went up front. I guess I really didn't know that y'all had gone, and just left Daddy. And the lights are out, and I tried the 2 doors, and they were locked. I thought, well, I guess they went home. So I went back to the dirt behind the building, and went back to playing. Figured, well, eventually they'll miss me and pick me up. And after about 20 minutes or so, I'm sitting there playing my little cars or whatever, and here Daddy sticks his head around the corner of the building. Oh, there you are.
Well, one thing I remember about driving home from the store, at Christmas time,
Oh, yes.
we would always count how many trees we could see in the windows.
There again, we're counting things.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, oh, and then you were catching rainwater or something in glass jugs out behind the store. And one time, one of them had fallen over and I was trying to turn it up and save it. And that's when I did this cut on my wrist because the jug broke. And so I had 2 stitches then. And, well, when I was a younger kid, somebody was towing me on a bike, and some dogs were chasing us, and we got off into some dirt, and the rusty seat of the chair.
Cut you on the thigh, right?
Yeah,
I
I
remember
got
that.
right across here. I got 8 stitches, and then another time when I was washing dishes and had my hand inside a glass and moving it, and then I cut a long slice on my finger, and I used to always want to watch them sew me up. And one time Mother says she was about to get me my own needle and thread because I was stitched up so much.
Well, I vote we go in for a while. This is enough shooting for one session, I think.
You getting cold, Mom?
Well, the sun's gone, but
Yep. What time is it? Do you have the time? Let me pause it. We'll see if you guys can think of one more good story to end with, and then I'll turn it off. We're almost at an hour.
Well, I nearly drowned one time. It was you. I don't think you. I don't know. It Shirley was. I was, and there's Wayne Thomas, Wayne Harris, and Johnny Thomas, and I stepped off into the hole out in front of the lake and went under. And I paddled my way to the surface and started screaming and went under again. And about the 3rd time I went down, I opened my eyes and I remember thinking, so this is what's like to drown. About that time, Wayne and Johnny noticed what was going on, and they came out and got me in and out of the hole, and Shirley carried me to shore on her shoulder. I think I was about 8 and she was been about 15. Shirley didn't remember that, but I never forgot it for obvious reasons.
Well, I didn't really remember that, but I do remember there was a big hole out there. And one time we bought Army surplus hammocks that had mosquito netting up the side and another cover on top
I've still got a couple.
for running. So I know it was at least me and Shirley. Were you there too?
One time I remember sleeping over there in a hammock.
Yeah.
But
Well, we were sleeping on the lakeside, and I think it rained during the night.
yeah, that sounds familiar.
We were in the rain there. So, anyhow,
Yeah, the Army surplus jungle hammocks.
yeah. So that was fun. So,
All right, that's it.